sickened by this, that a bullet passed through this girl's body. She's in critical condition in the hospital right now, and I fired the gun. And if you don't think I feel really about that, I do, but the question becomes, if you ask Hannah, did you commingle live bullets? What they call live rounds. When they say live rounds, that's a bullet that a police officer would shoot. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from in her kit?
Yeah.
She commingled live rounds with dummy rounds or movie rounds.
And we asked her. We asked her that. Do you know where you guys get the rounds from? Who orders it? Or you don't have any part of any of that?
Who, me?
Yeah,
that's her, yeah.
All familiar, okay.
All I know is when we come to the set, you hand me a cold gun. Nothing's in reverse. Then we load the gun with the flash rounds and we shoot. That's it. Every time. We never had a problem.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Your emotions are so clearly so right there on the surface. You felt shock. You felt anger. You felt sadness. Do you feel guilt?
No. I feel that there is. I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me.
Okay, how is everybody? Is off there? Feel rejuvenated? Wanted to talk to you today about Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's trial, testimony in the trial. And of course, I'm talking about the Dolly assistant. I think he's the Dolly Grip, Ross Adigo. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name terribly, but he came up in this trial and really turned it from what I thought was a pretty good case to what I think is a kind of, it will be a shocker if Hannah Gutierrez-Reed gets acquitted in this case. My opinion, just from watching the trial, you never know which way a jury's going to go. I'm never one to say definitely either way. I'm just, from my view right now, it looks very bad for Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. So many bad facts. And what we heard in this testimony is a kind of witness that you love in trials, or you love if you're a prosecutor. You don't like so much if you're a defense attorney, is very carefully spoken, self-assured, clear. How do I say it? He's not exaggerating. He's not understating. If anything, he's understating things. Clear witness. Very easy to understand. Very clear how he felt, and his description of being there for Helena Hutchins' tragic death was disturbing, impactful emotionally, and we will get into that today along with a lot of other stuff I have to show you. But pretty fascinating day too in court. And we'll talk about all that in a second. Let me just get to your comments first. Always such great comments. Thank you for leaving them. So let's start with Keith. 2570 says, you keep saying he, meaning Alec Baldwin, killed a woman, but he doesn't know that yet. He finds that out at the end of the interrogation. He's still callous. I mean, he did just shoot 2 people. So thank you, Keith. Yeah, I'm not so sure that matters so much to me. He obviously knows that the medics have been there, that he did something that caused someone to be helicoptered to a hospital. So maybe I was a little harsh, but his attitude and Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's attitude in their police interrogations are, to my eye, way off. So Alec Baldwin is telling them how movie sets work, and we will return to his long police interrogation, police questioning. It's not really an interrogation. But he's being very actorly, telling them what happens on movie sets, talking about strikes, telling them that every time he got the gun, absolutely, from Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and not Dave Halls, the assistant director. I mean, a lot of contradictions and a lot of things he told police that we know to be untrue. On the other hand, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed comes off like a teenager stuck in detention. And I think that's going to be very bad for her. Today, we had pretty much all day of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's second police interrogation with her lawyer sitting next to her. And just the attitude she shows in court. I don't think it's so much court, but the attitude of the police interrogation. You feel her age. That's what I think that's a fair assessment. You really feel her age. And what a great defense lawyer she has, by the way. Terrific defense lawyer. If I'm ever in that area of the world in New Mexico and I'm in trouble, mental note to myself. Riley H says, great program. Love your insights and witty sense of humor. Thank you, Riley. I've read that they went ahead and finished shooting the Rust film in Montana and that they made Helena Hutchins' husband an executive producer of the film. My understanding is that they're currently looking for a buyer for the film. Perhaps you could cover this in a future episode. At first, I thought no one will want to see this film, but then I also read that Helena's death will cause even more people to want to see it. Your thoughts? That's probably right. Anytime The Crow was big, anytime you have an actor or actors, I was thinking a lot during Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's trial about the Twilight Zone tragedy, where 3 people were killed on that set. And it was one of LA's longest and most expensive trials. And they put together, John Landis and Cote put together a dream team and got a non-guilty verdict. But certainly the objective evidence, from what I've read, don't support his acquittal. But LA trials are always weird, no? And yes, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's husband has been made co-producer, and Alec Baldwin has settled with him in a wrongful civil suit, and the details of that have been sealed due to Helena Hutchins and Matthew Hutchins' son's age. Stan Sweat says, it's been an interesting trial so far. Emotions ran high on day 3 when they examined Mr. Adiago, the camera grip on Rust. Wow, Stan, have you been looking at my at my notes, my show notes? Because that's exactly what we're getting into today. So, very damaging testimony. He talks about her being, meaning Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, being unprofessional, not doing the things that usual armorers do. So let us get into it. I just thought when this was going on, watching this testimony, I thought, just as, if you've been following my Adelson case coverage, just as Charlie Adelson thought during Georgia Kappelman, the prosecutor's closing arguments in his trial, this is not good. That's what I thought for Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. And really, Dave Halls pled guilty. And the more this trial goes on, the more I think Hannah Gutierrez-Reed just should have pled guilty and tried to minimize her sentence with her guilty plea, saving everyone time and trouble. Maybe tried to, I don't know if it was on the table to plead down to a lesser charge. I would severely doubt it. But on the other hand, she's spending all this money, time and money.
Was there any way?
Time and money on excuse me, that skipped forward. On what? I just feel like unless there's some kind of really surprise verdict, and I guess that's what every defendant counts on, I can't imagine her being acquitted. Every testimony is so damning. And you'll hear in this testimony, she's keeping her bullets in a fanny pack. The guns just unlocked for anyone to go and play with. And that's the reports. We haven't heard any of it in the trial. And this becomes pretty much one of those mysteries. So when this happened, we were getting all sorts of reports that there was shooting on the set. Now, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was not part of those. That's come out, but was there actual plunking or shooting cans in between scenes to blow off steam? Or out of boredom? I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever find out if there was any truth in that story. But here is Ross Adiago, and here is
which is camera apparatus affixed to the camera operator. And I don't think they were getting quite what they wanted as far as how the photography was portraying the story. So I brought the dolly in so we could mount the camera on the dolly and give them a more stable platform.
Technical difficulties abound. Go ahead and have a seat. Thank you. Please continue, sir.
I think that was it for the...
Okay.
I have such a negative reaction to this prosecutor, and what I'm reading in the comments, I saw a couple people said hello to me in the comment section on Court TV today. Was in there asking a few questions about what I was viewing, but I really do not like this prosecutor. She interrupts the defense. I feel is really cameras have gotten the worst of her. She does a lot of show-offy wisecracks. Other people seem to love her. So it may just be a personal thing with me. I don't like her.
Well,
excellent lawyer, though. I'll say
these
that.
gentlemen were
I just
speaking to me. Did you
personally
explain that this was going to be a blocking?
don't want to come into contact with her.
Let's go there. Explain what the blocking is.
So the decision was made to go from Steadicam to the dolly. So once it takes a moment to convert that camera over from one use to another. So I'm getting the dolly close to the pew where Mr. Baldwin, Harlan Rust would be sitting, and working with the camera operator, Reed. Helena had kind of mentioned where she wanted us, but I believe her and her gaffer were starting to prepare for the turnaround of when the law men came into the church. So we were just trying to find, blocking the shot, we would call it, trying to find the shot that best told the story in that moment that the director wanted to tell, which was to be, my understanding was to be an extreme close-up of Alec starting to draw his weapon. And then from what I know in the edit, his cut would have been, you as the audience, see that weapon start to leave his holster, and then we were going to then put the camera behind him to see the lawmen enter the church, and that's when this shootout would have begun in the church.
So were cameras rolling?
No, we were still blocking the shot.
And
That's one of those mysteries in this case, though. Why was he cocking the pistol? There was no need for that. He just had to pull it out. And all this nonsense that he told Stephanopoulos about, oh, I was in a conversation with Helena. Does this look good? Does this look good? Remember that weird part of the Stephanopoulos interview? It's a total fantasy, but for Alec Baldwin, as I've said before, what he says is the truth. He makes the truth.
were you present in the church when Ms. Gutierrez brought the firearm into the church?
Yes.
And tell the jury what you saw and or heard.
I never saw the interaction between Hannah and Dave in the church, but I could hear Hannah telling Dave that the firearm had been checked before lunch and had been locked up during lunch. And then Dave called out cold gun or cold weapon. I heard the word cold, and that's when I went back to focusing on my task at hand, helping.
And Ross also has a very good memory, too. This is just a dream witness. About Hannah Gutierrez's being unprofessional and acting inappropriately, basically dealing with her job in an inappropriate, unprofessional way. You can see that he feels a little bit of tentativeness about saying it. He's not out there. He's not coming on the stand to blast Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. He seems to feel he's saying it almost apologetically. And I think that makes it even more effectively. Patty N says, who hired Hannah? Who established the budget for safety positions? I think they cut crucial corners. It seems like Dave Hall took some notes here. In 2019, in the Into the Dark movie, there were complaints about him for blocking exits in a fire lane. He was fired off of the movie Freedom's Path for discharged gun on the set. Gun went off. And on another set, a man said, that man is a liability. He's going to kill someone someday. And other people dispute that. So that may be a little bit of, in retrospect, changing the story, but I don't know. Everybody on the set was underpaid. They were about to strike. Other people have brought up in the comments that Helena Hutchins So you have to remember people walked off the film in protest, essentially striking. And Helena Hutchins was supportive of that strike, supportive of those people who walked off. So was that Alec Baldwin's anger towards her? Was it, people suggested it may have come from that, at some kind of slight, either some kind of rejection of his past, or you just never know what went on. And Alec Baldwin is such an unreliable narrator. We don't even know if they went out to dinner the day before. That's just his telling. So back to this testimony. So everything on the set seems to be screaming a B movie. Alec Baldwin, a big star past his prime. And I think they hired Helena Hutchins because she had this great pedigree. Her father was the armorer. According to Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, excuse me, I think I just made that mistake. I meant Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Her father was she says he's the industry in her police interview. So movie business tends to like that. So everything was cut. She's getting paid $8,000, ridiculously low amount.
Reed and Helena find that insert shot.
Access the server. Let's see what's on the server. I'm still trying to iron out this issue. Thank you, Mr. Adiego.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you recall who said cold gun? Did you describe that?
I did. I heard Dave Hall's call. I don't recall if it was cold gun or cold weapon, but I heard the word cold, which typically for me is what I need to hear.
And cold gun means it's not going to go bang.
Correct.
Okay. With regard to Ms. Gutierrez's statement that you overheard about her not having checked the gun since lunch, did that cause you any concern?
It did.
Why?
Just accustomed to armorers checking those guns again on a regular basis. And we had a break. And typically that any firearm that's brought on set is checked, even if it had been checked previously.
Do you know how the gun got from Ms. Gutierrez?
Margaret is asking why weren't the guns disabled but still look genuine? I can't answer that, Margaret. Does anyone else know the answer to that? That's a good question. Don't know. I don't know enough about the job of an armorer other than what I've learned in this trial. So you put in dummy rounds so something is in the chamber so people in the audience don't go, oh, hey, look, there's nothing in that gun. Who knows something about guns? I wouldn't know the difference. But so that's the need for dummy rounds, different than blanks. So dummies are just there to fill up the gun. Thank you, Margaret. And blanks are there to actually make a bang, but they can still be deadly, as we found out with Brandon Lee.
To Mr. Baldwin.
I do not.
So after you heard Ms. Gutierrez's voice and you heard Mr. Hall's call out cold gun, where was the gun the next time you saw it?
In Mr. Baldwin's holster on his left side.
Did you see Ms. Gutierrez in the church?
Airdrie is saying it has to spin to look real. Thank you. Thanks so much. I would never know that.
I don't recall seeing her in the church after lunch, no.
So, go ahead and walk us through. Mr. Baldwin now has the gun. Where is he sitting? What is he doing? Take us through this.
Mr. Baldwin's seated in a church pew, and Reed and I are trying to find an angle, looking kind of over his right elbow or right bicep to see his hands in his lap transition from his lap to that firearm that's kind of hidden in a holster under the coat that he's wearing.
So if you can stand up, if you don't mind, and demonstrate what you believed Mr. Baldwin was supposed to do for the blocking.
My understanding was it was just to reveal that part of, the part of the gun that holds the bullets coming out of the holster, and then that portion of the, that piece of photography was finished. Once we saw that gun coming out of the holster, it would again give the audience the idea in that story that that Harlan Rust is about to defend himself or try to shoot the lawmen before they shoot him as they enter the church.
How close were the cameras to Mr. Baldwin?
The only camera we had in the church was, I think at that point I had the lens within a foot of Mr. Baldwin.
And do you recall where Ms. Hutchins was?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Would you explain?
So directly, if I'm sitting in the pew as Harlan Rust, Helena Hutchins was essentially directly in front of Rust, having a conversation with her gaffer. So there was maybe a couple of feet of air in between Mr. Baldwin and the pew that Helena and Serge were standing behind, directly in front of Mr. Baldwin.
And let me stop you. What's a gaffer? We don't know these terms.
My apologies. Gaffer is the head of the lighting department. So he was discussing with the director of photography. My understanding, of course, is they were discussing what we were going to do when we turned around to see the lawmen, because we were already lit for the direction that we were filming.
Do you remember the gaffer's name?
So as I'm watching this, all I hear in my head is Alec Baldwin telling George Stephanopoulos. So I pulled out the gun and I said, "Does that look good? Does that look good? Does that look good?" And bang. Anybody else remember that? Doesn't this sound a little bit different? Little bit different scenario here? I.e., Alec Baldwin sounds like he has nothing to do but sit there and wait. It sounds like boredom. Who needs to practice drawing something when you do not be taking something out of your jacket pocket, right? From under your jacket? If that's something you need to practice for, then then I will be a body double for any movie anyone wants. I don't need to practice. I can just do it on demand. I'm that talented. What is going on with Alec Baldwin? And it just brings me to what was going on in his head. And why did he think that running a set with people sleeping out of their cars because they had a crappy place miles and miles and miles away, working long hours for little pay? I'm sorry, this really burns me up about people who speak about politics and virtue signal about their politics and are such hypocrites. But when it comes to him paying people correctly, he supported another strike, just not his people striking. Oh, it burns me up.
Serge is his first name. I believe his last name, and I don't want to slaughter it, but I think it was Svetne,
Okay.
I believe is his last name.
Could you understand the conversation between Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Svetnoy. That's my
Thank you.
my best try.
So often none of us could understand because they often conversed in either Russian or Ukrainian, as they were both born and raised in that part of the world. So,
Do you know where Mr. Souza was at this point in time?
Mr. Souza was shoulder to shoulder, just to my right. He was looking at my dolly monitor so he could see what the camera was seeing.
So why would the director be in the room looking at your monitor? Well, let me ask it this way. Would the director normally be looking at that vantage point from Video Village?
Depends on the director and the situation. Sometimes they'll work with us more closely where they will be shoulder to shoulder, and we'll look at my monitor. We were still waiting for the new camera assistants to finish converting from Steadicam to what we'd call studio mode. So I don't believe the camera actually had a monitor. And potentially that's why he was looking over my shoulder instead of a bit removed in the Video Village.
Okay, we're going to pause for a moment. We think we're going to be able to watch these videos, and that's going to give everybody a much better idea of what was going on in there. Hope springs eternal. Okay, so we've already gone through the slate and et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to go ahead and play the video. This video will be marked as States Exhibit 112.
So Intolerance says this witness has a lawsuit against the production company, so his testimony is compromised, in my opinion. Yeah, good point. But I think it's so consistent with what other people are saying. And Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's demeanor, and she got called out in a million inconsistencies and basically lies today. She's doing 2 jobs. People have struck. I didn't question it. I was very aware that he had a lawsuit, but I didn't question his testimony. I didn't get a vindictive feel out of from his testimony, but that's really an interesting point. Maybe the jury will consider that. She's got a great defense team. I think someone else was pointing out in the chat that Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's lawyer came on the first day looking like Carmen Miranda. Like, seriously, dressed to the nines. Makeup. I've never seen a lawyer look like that in court. It was wild.
What's that noise we hear, that ch-ch-ch-ch?
I'm not actually sure. I was trying to figure that out myself.
Okay.
Island Russ? Did you get up nice and slow? I'll see weapons you might have. Ain't no iteration.
Who is the person speaking? Whose voice are we hearing?
It sounds like Jensen Ackles.
And is he an actor?
He is an actor in Rust playing one of the lawmen, is my recollection.
Okay, thank you.
Stand up slowly and toss in guns.
Okay, we're gonna do it again. And set, and action.
Island Russ? Did you get up nice and slow? Toss any weapons you might have. There ain't no iteration. You walking out of this church lesson, you stand up slowly and toss them guns.
Okay, and set. Put it up. Okay, so
There's the answer to your question. That's the answer to your question earlier, that sound.
Why don't you explain to us what we're seeing?
So what you just saw for a brief moment.
So that's the dust atmosphere maker. That's the sound that we're hearing. But doesn't it look so much like the recreation? It almost looks like some kind of AI thing. But probably that's because I've seen the AI thing before I've seen the real thing. But good job on that. So, yeah, I'm sitting here thinking everything, I keep thinking to myself, the stench of failure. Just everything on this movie feels B. You know what I mean? Like past its prime. So we would really love to get the armorer, the famous armorer for this, but we can't afford him. So we're going to get his daughter, who has one movie experience, has never been really trained except by her dad. We're going to get all these people sort of like falling down the bottom of the rung of Hollywood. So just looking at Dave Hall's credits, if I'm remembering right, it might be Joel Souza's. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember he worked on a Coen Brothers movie like in the 90s. And now he's worked his way down to Russ, sort of like fallen down the ladder of Hollywood. And this is where you end up in New Mexico on this terrible set where there's no money for anything and everyone's overworked and unhappy. And they're trying to cut corners at every corner. And then you have Alec Baldwin, this madman at the helm. So he's a producer and he's the star. And no one wants to talk to him. That's been the testimony. Nobody wants to confront him with the problems on the set. Although one brave set member, I believe this was Lane Looper, who came up to him and said, look, we're not being treated right. We can't. Some of us have to travel hours to get here in the morning for these 4 o'clock, I would assume 5 o'clock calls. And Alec Baldwin was like, no way. If we want one. This is a guy living in a $17 million, or no, he's not living there. That's just his vacation home in the Hamptons. He's selling it for $17 million. So if he really wanted to follow his principles that he's always spouting off about, maybe pull it from your own pocket. I know you're taking a pay cut, Alec, but I could just get the feeling nobody wants to hire Alec Baldwin except for the occasional SNL or the occasional B. Working Girl was a long time ago.
Department
Anyway,
people coming in to spray at what we'd call atmosphere, so dust or whatever I don't know what's in their spray can, but that is what that sound was, and that's what they were doing, was adding atmosphere that makes it look a little foggy, and if hard light comes through those windows, you would kind of see those lights, the rays of light in that fog.
And I just backed this video up to 1 minute 6 seconds so that I can ask you the position that Mr. Baldwin is sitting in this video. Is that the same or similar position that he was in the blocking scene after lunch?
Yes, similar.
Okay.
Okay, so if you want to go lower than that, go lower.
Is there any way you can come up and see me open my eyes, or you know what? I mean, like, let's say I'm down here like this, and when he says Harlan Rust, I want to go. Boop.
Okay.
But you got to come down here for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see if we can do that. Ready? Here we go.
Do you want
On another take, I mean. Here we go. Ready?
All right, another take. And set. Ready, and action.
Harlan Rust, did you get up nice and slow? Toss any guns you have. Now, in no iteration you walking out of this church lesson, you stand up slowly and toss some weapons. Rust.
All right, let's flip the sensor.
Can we try this?
So let me ask you, just so that we get an idea, where we see Mr. Baldwin sitting in the church pew, where is the door to the church?
Behind the camera.
From Mr. Baldwin's perspective, is it in front of him?
In front of Mr. Baldwin, yes.
And where is Mr. Ackles, the gentleman who is speaking in the scene?
It sounds as though he's just to the left of the camera.
So where would that be in relation to the door?
Jensen would be in between Mr. Baldwin and the door.
Okay, and if you can estimate how many feet, how big is this room, and how many feet are there from where Mr. Baldwin is sitting to the door?
In that instance, because we had moved the pews around a little, so in that instance, Mr. Baldwin's less than 20 feet from the door would be my guesstimation.
I'm sorry, Judy. I have to read your comment because it's too funny. Who is that Clodashian that sits next to Hannah? That's her lawyer. That's her lawyer. She's toned it down. She must have gotten the response from the general public after this that everybody was talking about her. She really did look like Carmen Miranda. And my deepest regret is I don't have a picture to show you handy of her. Oh boy, I messed up today, guys. My apologies. If I cover this tomorrow, I will definitely have one for you. It's something. It's really something to see. It's so over the top. I mean, she looks like she's going to like Cinderella at the ball, like that modeling evening wear. I don't know, for some outrageous designer, really done up hair, makeup to the hilt.
Okay. And who's this gentleman here that we can see in the video?
That is Dave Halls.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish it just for completeness, and then we'll move on to our next.
Oh, I just watched his police interview. What a guy I don't want to meet. But kudos to him. He pled guilty and he got probation for 6 months. So I have a little issue with New Mexico charging. I don't know. I feel like Alec Baldwin has a little bit more responsibility than Hannah Gutierrez-Reed here. He hired her. Who thought that was going to be a good idea? Let's hire the armorer with almost no experience who was getting complaints for guns going off on the last set. It's so, this is so preventable when we talk about accidents. So this is my same issue with Alec Baldwin and John Landis calling the Twilight Zone tragic accident just an accident. And I have no culpability in it. Just like Diane Schuler, who took her kids and her, was it her friends' kids or was it her cousins? Her nephews? I think they were related to her. Drove them drunk on the wrong way. Speeding on the wrong way down the highway and killed everybody except one. And one little boy survived. Her son. I mean, calling that an accident. This was so preventable. There were so many warning signs that were all ignored by the people in charge. And did they hear about it? I don't know. But certainly, and if there wasn't good communication, what I heard today was that the general safety meetings weren't held. Or was that yesterday? They weren't held. So what's going on? Who's setting the tone for this set is what I'm trying to say.
Excellent. All right. I am now going to play what will be marked as State's Exhibit 112A. I would ask the court to go ahead and admit 112A and give permission to publish.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, 112A is admitted. You may publish.
Okay. Mark. And set, ready, and action.
Arlen Russ. Did you stand up nice and slow? Toss any weapons you have.
Again, ready?
Little too wide. And set.
It's like he's directing himself. He's going to decide what he's going to do. Nobody's going to really directing him. He's really directing himself, telling them how they're going to shoot him. It's kind of crazy, no? I mean, clearly he's in charge, no? At least in this scene he is.
And action.
Arlen Russ. Did you get up nice and slow? Toss any weapons you have.
One more. You good? Ready?
Set, ready, and action.
Arlen Russ. Did you get up nice and slow? Toss any weapons you have.
Well, how close can I get right there?
Joe, you want me to wait to give you that line till he lands?
It's okay.
Till camera lands?
Yeah.
Yep.
Set, and this one?
Yeah.
Draw your gun and look up and point your gun, okay?
Okay, which way? Camera right or left?
This side of the camera for now.
So camera left for now.
I'll stand right here for you, Alex.
So whip it out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me get this all greased. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Okay, ready?
To whomever asked how many crew members, 14 crew members walked off the day before this happened.
Ready?
And set, ready, and action.
Arlen Russ.
Do one more just like that. You got one more? Yeah.
Ready?
And set, ready, and action.
Arlen Russ. Nice.
Let's go on.
Okay. So the
So correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like he had a lot of practice there, no? What is he practicing for?
the blocking, you can take these, thank you, Shad. The blocking that you were describing, as a person who was working in the room, were you expecting Mr. Baldwin to pull the gun all the way out? Like what we just saw in those clips?
In the blocking of the ECU,
What's the ECU?
extreme close-up,
Okay,
I was not.
okay.
My
Go ahead.
my understanding was it was just to kind of reveal that weapon coming out of the holster to the camera.
So I think that we may have ended your description of what was going on in the after lunch session where Mr. Souza was standing. And were there other people in the church also?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how many people were in there?
Myself, Reed, the camera operator, Zach, the boom guy was.
When you say the boom guy, what is a boom?
Sorry, guys. The person holding the sound boom. So recording sound for the sound mixer was in the church. Joel was shoulder to shoulder, like I had described, looking at my monitor. I believe Mamie Mitchell was to his right. Wardrobe, a woman named Doran was in there, I think, looking over Mimi's shoulder at the monitor. Helena, Serge, my direct boss, Reese Price, who's the key grip, he's the head of the grip department, had just come in to work with Helena and Serge. Dave Halls, and maybe one of the effects guys, I recall, was kind of in and out, keeping an eye on things, because they had pre-rigged some of their effects stuff in the ceiling, again, in preparation for the big turnaround that we were about to do.
Okay.
So I didn't give you a number, but I think that works out to 12-ish.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So keep walking us through it. What happens next?
So we, I guess Reed and I are trying to find the camera angle that Joel, the director, is happy with, that he feels will tell that piece of the story. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I believe Helena and Serge were discussing how to change the lighting for the turnaround. Reese, my boss, Reese Price, was in there. I think he had just brought in a bounce card, maybe for that insert, maybe for the next shot.
We don't know what a bounce card is.
Lighting apparatus. So he was going to use some of the light coming through one of the windows and potentially reflect that back towards Mr. Baldwin to help illuminate him. I think Joel, the director, and Alec had some brief conversation back and forth about what the goal was for that shot, and I think Alec had drawn it once to kind of audition what he thought his action should be for Joel, and then he drew it again, and it went off. And, instantly, a firearm went off in a small wooden church. So the concussion, ears ringing, that moment of panic in everybody.
Right, the moment of panic in everybody, except Alec Baldwin, who claims he didn't know what just happened. And I can understand not knowing. Was it a blank? No, but it's so loud. Something terrible just happened. You're expecting to hear click, to quote John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard, and you hear bang. Pretty big difference. Your ears are ringing. So listen to his description. It's horrifying. It's what it is.
I think the first person I made eye contact with was Helena, who was clearly injured by whatever that gunshot was, that noise we had just heard. And in fact, she was starting to go flush, and I think holding her right side, and then I think that Joel let out some sort of scream or made some noise that, to indicate he was also injured. And I think I just went to my...
Chateau Laughlight is asking me, why do I want him to go down for this? Because I think the set was completely reckless. And Lane Looper, when he asked for better accommodations, he didn't ask anyone else, but he didn't go to anyone else but Alec Baldwin. So everything I hear, and I've been on sets, and as I don't know, for those that don't know, my dad was a screenwriter. My godmother's an actress. I've been around. I've been on sets, and I think this was incredibly reckless. And I think Hannah Gutierrez-Reed needs to face responsibility, accept responsibility, or have to accept responsibility in some way. But Alec Baldwin was on sets. He knew that it was his responsibility to check the gun, and none of this was done. So 14 people walked off, not just for safety concerns, other concerns, pay, accommodation, etc. But safety was always an issue. If you've watched the trial, guns are going off. There was a discharge. The woman almost shot her foot the day before.
Attention went to Joel because he was the closest to me. I think I recall Reed and Serge moving Pew out of the way to help Helena get to basically to lay Helena down and start tending to her, figure out what her injuries were, or injury. And I started attending to Joel. I think I yelled out that if you can't help us, get the fuck out of here. And someone called 911. And I do recall Mimi's voice in the distance talking to 911 and telling where we're at. And I tried to calm Joel down. We had a good rapport, so I just tried to calm him down and let him know that we were going to get through it, because I didn't know what else to do in that moment. And then soon after, the medic and the best boy electric came into the church. And
I'm going to stop you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The medic, do you recall her name?
Her first name was Cher. I don't recall her last name.
Okay, and who was the other person you said? Best boy?
The best boy electric, Matt Hemmer, I believe was his last name. He was Serge's second in command, is what a best boy is. So the gaffer and the key grip each have a best boy, and then the rest of their department. And my understanding was Matt had some combat medical training, so he came in to assist the medic Cher, and I think
when right after the gun went off, do you recall seeing Ms. Gutierrez in the church?
I do not.
And did Mr. Baldwin stay in the church?
He sat down in that same pew, I think, in that moment when I yelled out that if you can't help us, you need to, get out of here. I think he sat down, and then at some point, I know I looked over and he was gone. So.
Okay. And in terms of your attention to Mr. Souza, what were you doing to him? Were you touching his body? What were you doing?
I was. So Joel was wearing kind of a thick hoodie, and I believe he had a t-shirt or a couple shirts on underneath. So it was start to figure out where Joel had been injured. He was certainly at that point writhing in pain and concerned for himself, asking me how Helena was, and I think coming to the realization that he had been shot. So I was trying to find where he was wounded. So started pulling back his hoodie to reveal what appeared to be a circular wound in his right shoulder. And at that point, I think the sheriff and Matt came in. They had gloved hands. I didn't, so I had some of his blood on my hands, and I think I helped them roll Joel over. One of them had trauma shears to cut his shirt off, and then I helped roll him over, and I was in a position to see that what appeared to be a bullet just under the skin, basically where his right shoulder blade was. And he was in a great deal of pain. And I think that Cher gave me some gauze to just put some pressure on the wound while they attended to Helena's injuries, which I gathered at that time were certainly much more severe because of her proximity to the firearm.
And could you hear Ms. Hutchins? I know you indicated that Mr. Souza was kind of yelling out in pain. Did you hear anything from Ms. Hutchins?
If I did, it was just, the groaning and discomfort from being shot by a firearm. I don't remember anything verbal from Helena.
Okay.
So for those listening on podcasts, you can see he's just trying to hold it all in. And it makes just trying to give the information, but the emotion is so there, right there, just under the surface. Very effective testimony. When I saw this, I thought, I just don't know. Her defense attorney's very good, did a very good cross, I thought. But what do you do with this? And yes, good point about his lawsuit, but I don't get vengeance from this guy. But maybe some of the jurors
At some
will. I don't know.
point, did paramedics arrive?
Yes.
And if you know, at some point was Ms. Hutchins taken for medical care offset?
Thank you, sir. I stayed with Joel until they carried him out, and what I observed was they were trying to stabilize her. I heard them call for a lifeline, so they were trying to stabilize her to get her in a helicopter and get her to whatever ER they felt was appropriate.
And at some point in time, were you notified?
For those of you who've been watching my live streams on the Wendy Adelson, look at the difference between this and Wendy Adelson's testimony. Not just her testimony, but she has no emotion in her testimony, which is so odd. But in her police interview, look at the difference. That's supposedly, I guess you could say it's shock, but she's supposed to be hysterically crying and doing this kind of breathing. Boy, what a difference, huh?
that Ms. Hutchins had passed.
Yes.
Mr. Adiego, when you heard the gunshot and you saw these people fall, did it occur to you in that moment that it was a live round, that there was a real bullet in that gun?
I don't, maybe not in that moment. I think it became clear when, like I mentioned, I rolled Joel over, helped roll Joel over to see what very much looked like a large caliber bullet just being barely held in by his skin.
Okay. And is this the first time in your life?
So he's not going, oh yeah, it looked like the next minute. He's still recovering from the emotion. So she's got him off the topic of extreme emotion, remembering the time from, she's pulled him out of the scene is what I mean. Better way to put it. So now he's just talking. Yeah, I figured it was a bullet when I saw it with my own eyes in the back of his shoulder.
Life that you've ever seen a bullet?
No.
Okay, so you knew a bullet when you saw one?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop there just for time, because I thought that was just, as far as I'm concerned, the most effective testimony of the trial so far. Before that, we heard about Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, like I said in the beginning, for those of you who are just tuning in, being very unprofessional, leaving her armor out, unlocked, pulling out live rounds from, dummies, ammunition, blanks, ammo from a fanny pack. I don't think she thought any of them were live rounds. I think she thought they were blanks, but she talks about, in, I believe it's her police interview, having different pockets for different ammo sometimes and for different things. It's just the demeanor that she has is so teenagerish. And I just wanted to show you a little bit of this so you can see a little bit, I hope I'm remembering right, a little bit of her police interview. And just look at her posture and demeanor.
Good morning, Julie. The state's case against Hannah Gutierrez will resume shortly here this morning in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Yesterday, we heard compelling testimony from a crew member from the movie set of Rust, talking about frightening moments involving those accidental discharges.
Certainly made a loud noise that spooked us and the animals we had on set. I think we had a couple of horses.
Right. So you would think after these discharges that she would become more conscientious, but nothing changed after this happened. But it was also, she wasn't called to be an armorer that day. She was also doing double duty as, I believe it's some kind of other assistant on the set.
On set, and again, it was unannounced, so it was a surprise.
I believe she was a prop assistant
To everybody that was around.
The dolly grip operator testified that the first accidental discharge on the movie set of Rust happened when prop master Sarah Zachary was handling the gun and shot herself in the foot.
In your previous experiences on other movie sets with armorers, did you ever see the prop master loading and unloading the guns?
I've never seen that, no.
1 hour later, another accidental discharge, this time when defendant Hannah Gutierrez was handling the gun.
Hannah was prepping the stunt double in the cabin with that firearm, and again, unannounced to any of us outside the cabin, that firearm was discharged.
After these discharges, while Alec Baldwin was shooting a scene with the revolver, cinematographer Helena Hutchins is killed. The firearms expert on the stand said that the gun would not have gone off unless someone had pulled the trigger. And Julie, the crew member on the stand, said that when he expressed safety concerns, he was ignored. That's the latest from here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We'll send it back to you.
All right, our thanks to Kelly Craft for that early update. Now, in addition to the testimony surrounding set safety, we also heard a lot about Hannah Gutierrez's professionalism, or should I say lack thereof, as her former co-worker took the stand, describing the indifference and how she acted and worked on set compared to other armorers that he's worked with in the past.
In my experience, the armors are usually the well, for lack of a better description, the most uptight and anal retentive people on set, because they literally have people's lives in their hands.
Did you notice a difference then generally in terms of just the behavior, the general behavior on the movie set of the other armors you worked with as compared to Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
What was that?
She wasn't necessarily as serious or professional as I'm accustomed to with the other armors that I've worked with.
Said it yesterday, I'll say it again. How did she get that job? Let's talk about it with our guest, retired DEA.
All right, nepotism. Nepotism is how she got the job, right? That's how she got the job. That's him talking about Ross Adiago, talking about Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's professionalism on the set. How did she get the job? No money, and they were impressed by her name. That's how she got the job. So I think I'm going to end it with Matthew. Let me just see if I can. Hold on one second. Yeah, hold on. I just wanted to show you her demeanor a little bit in her police interview. Hold on one second.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott.
Just move on.
Okay. So
I hardly even go shooting with 45 ammo at all. I normally just use 22.
Okay.
So that's what's come out on the set, that she wasn't skeet shooting. Not skeet shooting. What is it? When you're shooting cans in between shots.
So you got the...
But she's leaning back. She's just everything about it says casual atmosphere. Thanks so much, Dr. Zapp. Dr. Zapp. Dr. Zapp, thank you very much for the super chat. I just like saying your name so much.
Guns this morning, you and Sarah are the only ones who have... Is it a combination for the safe?
It is, yeah.
Okay, and you guys are the only ones who have that combination? Mm-hmm. Okay. But the rounds are...
They're in the truck, yeah. The truck gets pretty much locked up every night. I mean, not like padlocked, but just on set. Security.
Okay. Or do you guys have lunch as well?
So it came out the first day of trial that she gave, how do I say this in a YouTube-friendly way? A substance to popular fizzy drink, might be. She was giving someone else her Coke in a smile. Should we put it that way? I don't know. Let's see if that passes. But, the way I see it is in the 70s and early 80s, some of these entire film sets were fueled by that. So I can't blame it entirely on that. Just look at her whole attitude towards her job. It was so lax. And that's what happens when you don't, for one thing, you don't pay people well. And for one thing, when you're young and you don't care. I mean, it's like she's doing some horrible temp job or something. You're already, if you're not getting paid well, you're not being treated well, you're already resentful towards your boss. You shouldn't be, but Shari Davis, just because Roberta rocks. Oh, thank you, Shari. Appreciate it. So kind of you. But when you're young, and you're not getting paid well, this is the attitude. I'm just saying, and you don't have no maturity. And I think she was spoiled a little bit. Looking at the footage that I have. But she calls Helena Hutchinson one interview. I would think that if I were responsible, if I had loaded a gun that killed somebody in this way on a movie, took part, I played a part. But she obviously doesn't see it like that. I also wouldn't be going to trial. I would be pleading out.
Okay. And you guys left the dummy rounds and the ammo, but it's not real ammo.
My bad. Blanks. The blanks. Yeah, we'll go with blanks.
I'll use blanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so I also don't mix up in the confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was so inarticulate. I would tell you, I put together these little openings for my live streams, and I wanted to use a clip of her, and she's so inarticulate that I just felt everybody would be lost. She's so hard to follow. So I had to go with Baldwin. Hold on one second. I have to cough. So, yeah, very immature. Never should have had this job. And this is, cutting corners. She really cut corners in her own life, learning from her dad, never really working her way up, it's a big job being an armorer. But Alec Baldwin gives her double duty with prop duty. Alec Baldwin and co. I don't think he personally assigned it, but he thought that was okay to do. So I just wanted to end with an interview with Matthew Hutchins, Helena's husband. Hold on one second. Please hold.
The idea that the person holding the gun, causing it to discharge, is not responsible is absurd to me.
In his first interview, a Today Show exclusive, Matthew Hutchins.
So to set this up, he did this interview right after Alec Baldwin did his interview, where he said, you saw a little clip of it in the beginning. If you're just tuning in, he said, I don't feel any guilt.
Husband of cinematographer Helena Hutchins says Alec Baldwin, who fired the fatal shot that killed his wife, is in fact to blame for the movie set shooting.
Gun safety was not the only problem on that set. There were a number of industry standards that were not practiced, and there's multiple responsible parties.
In the extensive interview with Hoda Kotb, Hutchins, who's filed a civil suit against Baldwin and others on the production of Rust, says he watched Baldwin's interview in terror as he recounted in detail Helena's death and deflected blame.
I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me.
Watching him, I just felt so angry. Just so angry.
Yeah, I felt anger, and I didn't know Helena. It's infuriating. I wouldn't be giving interviews if I were responsible for a woman's death in this manner. And every lawyer, every talking head said it was a mistake for Alec Baldwin to give that interview.
Angry to see him talk about her death so publicly in such a detailed way, and then to not accept any responsibility after having just described killing her.
4 months after the shooting, Hutchins recalled telling his 9-year-old son his loving mother was never coming home. Hutchins also remembers embracing Baldwin amid a swirl of emotions when first arriving in Santa Fe, well before the actor spoke publicly.
He said essentially he felt grief but no guilt.
Almost sounds like he was the victim. And hearing him blame Helena in the interview and shift responsibility to others and seeing him cry about it, I just feel like, are we really supposed to feel bad about you, Mr. Baldwin?
Hutchins wouldn't say if Baldwin should be criminally charged.
Yeah, and the answer is yes. He said something very interesting near the end. Take a listen, which I think is right on the nose. And of course, they saved it for his last word.
Will be up to the DA. Lester?
All right, Miguel, thank you. You can watch much more of Hoda Kotb's exclusive interview tomorrow morning on Today.
Oh,
thanks for
maybe
watching.
That was it. Maybe that's it. He said, it's almost like you're the victim. Maybe I missed it. There. Whoops. Yeah, he said, it's almost like you're the victim. Exactly. Almost as if. So Alec Baldwin's trial for manslaughter trial starts in July 9th. It's Miss Shorty jumping on the We Love Roberta train. Thanks so much. Congrats on your channel growth. It's Miss Shorty. If you're not subscribed to her channel and her great shorts, check them out. That is what I have for today, guys. That is it. But I will be watching this trial. Very exciting day in trial. So what happened today in court? They just played Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's police interview, and then they contrasted it with the testimony. So they played a little bit, and the detective was on the witness stand, and she would say, no, that was not, turned out to be untrue or inconsistent with another statement. So another terrible day for Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. I'd be very surprised. You never know which way a jury's going to go, but I'd be very surprised if she gets acquitted in this case. If she gets acquitted, it will be squarely on the shoulders of her excellent defense team from what I've seen so far. He doesn't have much to work with, and he's doing very good cross-examinations. Some of the best cross-examinations I've seen in a trial. So thanks so much for listening. I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Please hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Share this episode. Leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and I'll be back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. See ya tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.